They weren't just following scripts. They weren't memorizing lines written by someone who'd never thrown a punch or taken a hit. These men were drawing from real scars, real fights, and real battles that existed long before any director yelled action. Behind the cameras, they endured wars, prison yards, street brawls, industrial accidents, and stunts that pushed the boundaries of what a human body can survive. They didn't play tough guys. Life had already carved that toughness into their bones. In this video, we're counting down the 10 toughest actors in Hollywood history, not the highest paid, not the most glamorous, but the ones whose real lives made their screen personas look almost modest. These are actors who didn't just portray danger. They understood it intimately. Before we begin, drop a comment telling us which classic Hollywood actor you'd never want to meet in a real fight. Because by the end of this list, that answer might flip upside down. Some of these men came home with medals. Others came home with mugshots. All of them carried something real behind their stare. So let's start with a man whose entire existence was a long, unbroken masterclass in raw survival. Number 10, Robert Mitchum. Chain gang prisoner at 16, Depression-era drifter, underground boxer. Robert Mitchum didn't look intimidating because of studio lighting or makeup. His sleepy-eyed stare, often described as half bored, half dangerous, was the natural expression of a man who'd already lived more life by age 20 than most people experience in 70 years. As a teenager, Mitchum rode freight trains across America, not in search of adventure, but in search of food and work. He drifted from state to state doing whatever brutal jobs he could find, ditch digging, coal mining, grueling day labor that left men broken by 40. He boxed under fake names for meal money, taking real punches from real fighters just to get by. At 16, he was arrested in Georgia and sentenced to a chain gang, an experience so harsh that Hollywood's later attempts to dramatize it looked like gentle reenactments. By the time cameras ever rolled on him, Mitchum had already picked up a broken nose, scars, and a bone-deep weariness that no makeup artist could replicate. When he was busted for marijuana in 1948, the studios panicked. Publicists worried his career was finished. Mitchum didn't flinch. He served his 60-day sentence, walked out of jail without apology, and returned to work like it was just another Tuesday. Strangely, it made him more popular. He joked that he had only 2 acting styles, with and without a horse. And he wasn't kidding. Co-stars said there was always something slightly unsettling about standing near him. Not because he was loud, but because he wasn't. He had the quiet self-assurance of a man who'd fought, bled, and survived long before Hollywood ever knew his name. Director Edward Dmytryk put it bluntly, "You didn't direct Mitchum. You just kept the camera rolling and prayed he didn't knock someone out." Robert Mitchum didn't pretend to be tough. He simply didn't know any other way to be. Number 9, Charles Bronson. Coal miner at age 10, B-29 tail gunner, Purple Heart recipient. Charles Bronson didn't talk much. He didn't need to. The silence itself was a warning. Born the 11th of 15 children in a dirt-poor Pennsylvania mining family, Bronson's childhood wasn't difficult, it was punishing. He was underground in a coal shaft by age 10, swinging a pickaxe while most kids his age were learning multiplication tables. The mine gave him his first uniform, soot, sweat, and the knowledge that survival required endurance far beyond his years. When World War II erupted, he traded the blackness of the mines for the dark interior of a B-29 bomber. As a tail gunner, the deadliest crew position, Bronson sat exposed at the very back of the aircraft, fending off enemy fighters while bombing runs raged around him. He was wounded in combat and awarded the Purple Heart. Returning home, he worked as everything from a cook to an onion picker. Fame wasn't his goal. A steady paycheck was. Directors quickly realized Bronson wasn't a polished performer. He was the living embodiment of efficiency. When he hit someone on screen, the movement looked real because it was real, compact, fast, decisive, the way a man hits when he's learned to end fights as quickly as possible. Jan Michael Vincent once described filming with Bronson: "He grabbed my shirt in a scene and I couldn't believe the strength. He wasn't pretending. Even alleged mafia threats during Death Wish barely registered to him. He shrugged them off, saying, 'I've seen too much to be scared of that.'" Bronson didn't wear toughness like a costume. He was forged in it. Number 8, John Wayne. Broken ribs, a lung removed, worked through cancer and radiation exposure. John Wayne's toughness wasn't theatrical swagger, it was endurance. Before he became the symbol of the American cowboy, Wayne worked grueling manual labor jobs in early Hollywood, moving heavy props, building sets, whatever was available. His physicality came from real work, not Hollywood training. On the Alamo, he cracked multiple ribs in a horse stunt. Instead of shutting down the shoot, he wrapped his torso, took painkillers, and filmed for weeks in agony. In 1964, doctors removed a lung and 4 ribs after diagnosing cancer, most likely caused by radiation exposure from filming The Conqueror near nuclear testing grounds. Nearly half the cast and crew later developed cancer. Wayne was one of them. Yet months after surgery, he returned to filming The Sons of Katie Elder, performing his own stunts, even when breathing was difficult. When director Henry Hathaway suggested using a double, Wayne's response was simple: "Either I do my own stunts, or you get someone else." Even political rivals respected his physical courage. Kirk Douglas once said, "Disagree with his views all you want, but don't question the man's toughness." Wayne didn't pretend to be durable. He kept working when most men would have been bedridden. Number 7, James Cagney. Lower East Side street fighter, boxer, dancer with lightning-fast reflexes. James Cagney wasn't big, 5 feet 5 inches on a generous day, but he moved with the explosive precision of a coiled spring. Growing up on Manhattan's brutal Lower East Side, he learned fast that fists were survival tools. He fought because he had to. His punches on film didn't look like Hollywood choreography. They looked like real street punches, quick, sharp, targeted. Director Raoul Walsh said Cagney threw the most convincing punches of any actor he ever worked with, because Cagney had thrown plenty of them off-screen. But Cagney's secret weapon was his dance training. That combination of street fighting instinct and dancer's timing made him dangerous in a way that didn't require size or intimidation. Off-screen, his reputation was solid, not a bully, but someone you never wanted to push too far. Bob Hope joked, "Cagney's the kind of guy who'd knock you down, then buy you a drink." Cagney proved toughness isn't about size. It's about precision, confidence, and absolute conviction in your movements. Number 6, Anthony Quinn. Born during a revolution, boxer, carried 2-man logs at age 46. Anthony Quinn came into the world during the Mexican Revolution and grew up in the slums of East LA. Survival wasn't a romantic hardship, it was the only goal. He worked by age 9, did whatever labor kept his family afloat, and eventually turned to professional boxing to supplement income. His broken nose? Earned honestly. On film sets, Quinn's physical power became legendary. He carried logs meant for 2 men across beaches during Zorba the Greek, not because he wanted to show off, but because the crew needed the job done. At 46, he performed dangerous cliff-climbing sequences in the Guns of Navarone with the calm of someone who'd climbed tougher obstacles in real life. What set Quinn apart was his emotional range. He could be tender or explosive, soulful or terrifying. His toughness wasn't macho posturing, it was the byproduct of a life lived at the intersection of hardship and survival. Anthony Quinn didn't pretend to be strong. He simply was. Number 5, Kirk Douglas. Wrestling champion, Navy combat veteran, survived helicopter crash and a stroke. Kirk Douglas fought his way into life, into Hollywood, and into legend. Growing up in extreme poverty, he took any job he could find: janitor, dishwasher, fruit stand worker. But wrestling became his ticket out, earning him a scholarship to college. During World War II, Douglas served aboard submarine chasers, small ships constantly in danger of enemy fire. He was injured, discharged, and never talked about it for sympathy. That wasn't his style. On screen, he performed with ferocity that felt almost too real. For Spartacus, he trained with actual gladiatorial fighters, took genuine hits, and insisted on a level of authenticity that made studios nervous. But Douglas's toughest years came later. At 72, he survived a helicopter crash that killed 2 other people. Most men his age would never walk again. Douglas not only recovered, he returned to acting. Then a stroke robbed him of speech. He fought through years of therapy, regained his voice, and wrote a book about the experience. As Stanley Kubrick said, when Kirk decided something was going to happen, it happened. Douglas didn't just act tough. He embodied relentless resilience. Number 4, Lee Marvin. Marine Corps combat veteran Purple Heart recipient survived machine gun wounds. Lee Marvin's intimidating presence wasn't crafted. It was remembered. As a Marine in World War II, Marvin fought through some of the Pacific's bloodiest campaigns. On Saipan, he was hit by machine gun fire, one bullet severing his sciatic nerve. He spent over a year recovering. His on-screen movements had an authenticity other actors couldn't replicate, the economy of someone who understood that real violence is fast, ugly, and final. Off-screen, he carried the same controlled danger. During filming in Oregon, he reportedly got into a bar fight with multiple lumberjacks, and held his own. He showed up the next day bruised but ready to shoot, refusing to delay production. Marvin didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence did all the talking. Number 3, Steve McQueen. Marine rescuer, professional racer, performed nearly all his own stunts. Steve McQueen lived his entire life like the throttle was stuck open. Abandoned by both parents, raised in reform schools, and constantly fighting authority, McQueen learned early that you survived by relying on yourself. In the Marines, he was rebellious but reliable under fire. During Arctic training, he saved 5 men from drowning in a sinking tank, one of the bravest acts in Marine Corps training history. Hollywood didn't tame him. It barely contained him. McQueen performed almost every stunt himself: motorcycle chases, car races, falls, fire sequences. Insurance companies hated him. Audiences loved him. Off-screen, he raced professionally, placing second at the grueling 1970 Sebring race with a broken foot encased in a cast. When he learned Charles Manson had targeted him, he didn't panic, he carried a loaded Magnum everywhere. Steve McQueen didn't act fearless. He was fearless. Number 2, Charlton Heston. World War II veteran worked through torn ligaments, filmed after losing a lung. Charlton Heston was built like a hero, but his toughness went far beyond physique. As an Army Air Forces radio operator and aerial gunner in World War II, he developed the discipline that defined his entire career. On film sets, Heston never took the easy route. The tablets he carried in the 10 Commandments were real stone, heavy enough to injure most actors after a few takes. He did dozens. During The Greatest Story Ever Told, he tore shoulder ligaments and simply had the injury wrapped so filming wouldn't stop. Later in life, after filming The Conqueror near nuclear test grounds, he developed cancer and had a lung removed. Instead of retiring, he returned to performing, using sheer force of will to compensate for diminished lung capacity. Heston didn't just portray endurance. He lived it. Number 1, Audie Murphy. Most decorated U.S. soldier in history, Medal of Honor, survived impossible odds. Audie Murphy looked like a teenage choir boy. But behind that innocent face was one of the deadliest soldiers America has ever produced. Rejected repeatedly for being underweight, Murphy finally enlisted at 112 pounds, and went on to become the most decorated American soldier of World War II. At 19, he climbed onto a burning tank destroyer, held off an entire company of German soldiers for over an hour, continued fighting after being wounded, and then led a counterattack. By age 21, he had earned every U.S. medal for valor, plus foreign honors. He personally killed or incapacitated an estimated 240 enemy soldiers. Hollywood cast him as himself into Hell and back, but even then they had to tone down his accomplishments because audiences wouldn't believe the truth. Off-screen, he battled PTSD, slept with a loaded pistol, and experienced violent flashbacks. Yet he remained disciplined, professional, and gentle, until someone crossed a line. One businessman who tried threatening Murphy said, "I suddenly realized he could kill me without hesitation." Audie Murphy wasn't acting tough. He was the real thing, perhaps the toughest person ever to stand in front of a camera. Honorable mention, Danny Trejo. San Quentin boxing champion, former armed robber, 50 years sober. While our list focuses on Hollywood's golden age, we can't ignore the modern anomaly, Danny Trejo. Before he was Machete, Trejo served hard time in some of California's most brutal prisons during their most violent era. He won the lightweight and welterweight boxing titles in San Quentin, fights where victory wasn't glory but survival. After overcoming heroin addiction and getting sober in prison, he became a drug counselor. He was discovered on a film set only because he was helping a young actor battling addiction. Trejo doesn't brag. He doesn't posture. He doesn't need to. His respect in prison circles is real, earned, not advertised. As one former inmate put it, "In the places where fake toughness gets you killed, Trejo was the real deal."